Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you'll remain for a moment of silence as we remember those who have gone far too soon. Thank you. We are opening up our organizational meeting tonight. You're going to get your money's worth because we've got a threefer going on. So we have 3 different meetings going on, and we're opening up our organizational meeting. We'll begin with that. And then with the organizational meeting, we're going to begin with this. I have a motion here that I will be looking for, but we have a resignation, and we have the resignation of our Assistant Police Chief, Harold McClellan. And this was effective March 10, 2015. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Ben? Second, Rick. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Further discussion? I'm sorry, excuse me. Any opposed? All those in favor? That is accepted. We are now going to,
At the oath of office. Harold, do you want to come in, please?
don't we need to do the appointment here first? Okay.
Do you want to read this? Do you want me to?
What?
Do you want to read this yourself, or do you want me to give it to you?
You can read it.
The oath.
Yeah, why don't you read it?
Raise your right hand. I
I, Harold McClellan,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will willfully discharge the duties of acting justice for the village of Hoosick Falls.
and that I will willfully discharge the duties of acting justice for the village of Hoosick Falls.
Amen.
Congratulations.
You took my paper.
I thought I had one.
Mayor,
All right. What?
Harold,
be sworn in.
my paper.
All right.
We all gotta use that. You wanna read it or you want to hand it to?
You raise your right hand. I
I, David Borge,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of mayor.
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of mayor.
My turn.
Just want to say your name.
I'm just gonna read it so we'll go a little quicker, and I'll save you the trouble of having to repeat this for everybody.
Right hand.
I, Rick DiDonato, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of trustee of the village of Hoosick Falls according to the best of my ability.
All right.
I, Robert Ryan, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, that I will faithfully discharge the duties of trustee according to the best of my ability.
I, Kevin O'Malley, will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and I will faithfully discharge the duties to the best of my abilities.
I, Karen Sprague, do solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the New York State, and I faithfully discharge the duties of trustee to the best of my ability.
Okay.
I swear I just did
Now
that.
we'll have to sign in. You did.
Now we do a roll
right?
call.
Okay.
Roll call, trustee Downey.
Here.
Trustee Sprague.
Here.
Trustee Patton.
Here.
Trustee DiDonato.
Here.
Trustee Ryan.
Here?
Trustee O'Malley.
Here.
All present and village attorney. Now you open up.
Hmm?
Now you open up. You're all set. Go ahead.
Go with the organization, we can go through this, right? Okay, what we'll be doing next is going through the organizational piece of this. And these are all the different appointments that are made. And I will go through this. I will ask for one motion at the end, so we can cover all of this, okay? We've had the roll call. I have appointed Rick DiDonato to be deputy mayor for another term. The tentative agenda for each meeting of the board shall be prepared by the village clerk and given to the mayor and trustees and each department head on the Friday before each regular meeting. All trustees and the mayor should make a concentrated effort to include all business before them to be entered on the agenda, giving other board members time to prepare for the meeting. The agenda will include business of the regular meetings, the call to order, pledge of allegiance, moment of silence, roll call, correspondence, treasurer's report, minutes, police report, code enforcement report, village clerk's report. We will then go on for people to be heard, monthly committee reports, old business, new business. Meetings will be conducted in accordance to parliamentary procedure with reference to the revised edition of Robert's Rules of Order. Meetings will be held on the second Tuesday of each month at 10 o'clock unless otherwise advertised. 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
I don't know why I said that. It says 6 o'clock. The first name on each committee is the chairperson and has the responsibility for the operation of said department. The other named person shall act as advisors to the chairperson. It shall be the duty of the chairperson to follow up the resolutions of the board pertaining to their department and to see that they are properly executed. In case of emergency, the committee chair shall notify the mayor or deputy mayor at once. Following committees will be put in place. Code enforcement, the initial chair, first person will be Kevin O'Malley, then Bob Ryan. Communications, Rick DiDonato, Ben Patton. Court, Karen Sprague. Dog control, Robert Ryan. Fair housing officer, Robert Downing. Finance, Ben Patton, Karen Sprague. Highway department, Robert Ryan, Kevin O'Malley. Parks and grounds, Rick DiDonato. Planning and zoning board liaison, Karen Sprague. Public safety, Robert Ryan, Rick DiDonato. Public works, water, Ben Patton, Kevin O'Malley. Sewer, Kevin O'Malley, Robert Downing. Recycling and solid waste, Robert Downing. Revitalization, Rick DiDonato, Ben Patton. Streetlights, Robert Downing, Kevin O'Malley. For a 6-month appointment, we are proposing that Tony Rice be the acting assessor for the village, and that gives us the time to take a look and see what the next steps would be. And that was effective, I believe, I want to say February 15th. For 1-year appointments, village clerk, Ann Bornt. Registrar, Ann Bornt. Deputy registrar, Judy Vandekar. Sub-registrar, Denise McMahon. Acting village justice, Harold McClellan. One more time in case nobody heard that. Acting village justice, Harold McClellan. Court clerk, Holly Cross. Sewer inspector, Dan Merrills Jr. Assistant sewer inspector, Ken Holbrook. Deputy superintendent of public works to be determined. Dog control officer, Nancy Quell. Assistant police chief to be determined. Transfer station operator, Charles Preble. Fiscal auditor to be determined. Building inspector, code enforcement, Mark Surdam. Police matron, Melissa Davick. Nuisance law appeal board. We need 1 resident from the village to complete that, and that needs to be done, so that's to be determined. Appointees for 2 years. Village treasurer, Denise McMahon. Deputy village clerk, Judy Vandekar. Superintendent of Public Works, Neil Stoll. Wastewater treatment plant, Dan Merrills Jr. Assistant Wastewater Treatment Plant, Ken Holbrook. Water Treatment, Jim Hobart. Assistant Water Treatment, Josh Magazzano. Sorry, Josh. Zoning Board, Harold Nichols, Chair, 2013 to 2017. Sharon Davendonis, 2015 to 2019. Mike Danforth, 2013 to 2017. Dennis Casey, 2015 to 2018. Andy Messerschmidt, 2015 to 2020. Planning Board, Gail Leva, Chair, 2014 to 2018. Shane Hathaway, 2014 to 2019. Patricia Smith, 2013 to 2016. Don Bradley, 2014 to 2017. Sandra Sargood, 2014 to 2019. On the Nuisance Law Appeal Board, we have one member from the Planning Board, one from the Zoning Board, and one village resident, and that position is to be determined. That appointment, I should say. Workplace Violence Committee, Maggie Casey, Mark Surdam, Officer Crystal Quell. Ethics Committee, Maggie Kinney, Bernie Davick, Matt Monahan. These are all the appointments that we have. We've gone through all of them, and I would ask for a motion to accept those appointments.
I'll make that motion.
Bobby?
Second.
Ben, second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried, thank you. In addition, we have the emergency purchasing and our procurement policy, which has been attached. We have that here. Emergency purchasing, all officers, agents, and department heads of the village must first obtain the approval of the village mayor and/or committee chairs of that department for any purchase in excess of $1,500. In the case of an emergency, the mayor and/or deputy mayor may approve such purchase, provided that the approval of such purchase could not wait until the next regular meeting. If a purchase is made under this emergency condition, the purchaser and the chief fiscal officer will inform the village board of such a purchase at its next meeting. In any event, the purchase will still be required to follow the guidelines set forth in the procurement policy. Is there a motion to accept the procurement policy?
Motion?
Second.
Ben, Bob D, second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. We also need a motion to accept the purchasing policy, which I just went over. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Rick?
Second.
Bobby? Second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion's carried. Thank you. Regarding the hiring of personnel, there will be no hiring of personnel without the consent of the mayor and the village board. Personnel, all salaried personnel receive no overtime and may be called to work at any time by the chair of the committee or by the mayor or deputy mayor. Salaried personnel are on call 7 days a week and are required to work regular hours pertaining to the work week of the village. Benefits are not provided to part-time employees. All vacation time must be used by the end of each fiscal year. No vacation time will be held over. Overtime. Overtime must be approved by the committee chair or the mayor. We have two unions involved here, so that there is the possibility of overtime. Is there a motion to accept the personnel policy?
Motion?
Ben?
Second.
Rick? Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That is carried. The official newspaper will be the Eastwick Press. The official bank, Key Bank. Is there a motion regarding both of those?
Motion.
Bob, D, second.
Second.
Rick, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. And that really has everything for the organizational meeting, so we need a motion to close the organizational meeting.
Motion?
Ben?
Second.
Bob D. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion, the organizational meeting is adjourned. Okay. And
It's quick.
now, Open up the public hearing now, based on this. Okay. Second part of this evening will involve a public hearing on our 2015-2016 tentative budget. The budget has been on file since March 20th, and it's been available for anyone to pick up or take a look at. So we will open that public hearing and give people an opportunity to make any comments at this point in time. Is there anyone to be heard? Yes?
I have not had a chance to look at the budget. Were there any increases on the point one, basically,
On
point ones,
on point one.
salaries? Were there any increases from last year to this year, other than the regular 3%, specifically the building inspector?
If you would please give your name and address for the record.
Okay, Keith Simperley, Village of Hoosick Falls, cameras.
Well, we want to have a record of that, so,
Okay.
okay. Yes, we went from a part-time to a full-time position
Okay,
for building inspector.
and what was the salary increase?
I don't know what the increase
There
was.
was no increase?
No, not an increase as such. We went from part-time to full-time.
So there was benefits?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. We'll leave the public hearing open until, what, 7 o'clock?
Yeah, I've got a motion in the meeting to close it when.
All right, so when we get to that
Yeah.
point, okay. All right, so we will now open the regular meeting. And we've got lots of paper. I see a lot of new faces here tonight. How many folks are coming over from school? Put them up real high so we can see you. Okay, all right, welcome, welcome. It's good to see you here. You picked a tough night, it might be a little bit longer than normal. We'll try and move through it as quickly as we can, but it's good to see you here, and hopefully you will learn some things about how things operate in the village and in your community, and you will bring that back and have some good discussion about it. So, always good to see you, thank you. Thanks for being here. Announcements. We have several announcements. We have a thank you from the family of Larry Stoll, who passed away very recently. So there's a thank you going around. Thank you for the kindness at the passing of Larry. So we'll have that. I received a request from Kathy Jimino, the county exec, in reference to the sales tax and continuing the 1% additional sales tax. And she asked for a letter of support, which I wrote and sent out. I know that the county legislature would also write a letter, and then that would go over to the state legislature. So hopefully that has taken place. But it's a considerable amount of money, that 1% to our community, so we want to make sure that that continues to be in place. Okay, give you that so we don't lose them all. Another one? I think that's all the same, isn't it?
It's all your correspondence.
Okay, we have a thank you letter from the Rensselaer County Sheriff's Office. Thanks for the hospitality shown to me and members of the Sheriff's Office during our recent participation in the Hoosick Falls St. Patrick's Day Parade. The ability for us to use your station to stay warm and dry until the parade time was greatly appreciated. Although the weather was less than perfect, spectators seemed to enjoy the parade and the festivities that followed. Again, thank you very much. Patrick Russo, Under Sheriff. We'll get into that afterwards. This past weekend, we had two major events occur here in the village. We had two young men who achieved the rank of Eagle Scout, both on Saturday. And it was quite a remarkable day for those two individuals. But if you think about it, two young men achieving the rank of Eagle Scout in our community, a community this size, both on the same day. And there are many, many folks that are involved with scouting and Eagle Scouts, and this community has really been fostered and gone forward with the number of Eagle Scouts, and I might add Gold Star, which is the equivalent for Girl Scouts. In fact, one of the families this weekend had both a Gold Star daughter who has achieved that rank a few years ago, and a son who achieved that rank on Saturday, so quite an accomplishment. And the Hoosick community really has a good number of people that are involved in that, and it's really good to see. It really is. A lot of hard work goes into it, and it really pays off. So it was two very nice events, and hopefully there will be more. But the two this weekend were, let me just get the names.
It's on your agenda.
Yeah. Gregory Puri and Reed Crabo. Sorry, Reed. So anyway, wanted to mention that.
On your agenda.
Okay. All right, so that we have that. All right, Hubbard Hall has requested use of the park over the summer for another Shakespeare in the Park. And they're looking at Saturday evening, July 25th. And they would like to begin at 7 o'clock. They've done this for a number of years, and it's always very, very well received. People have enjoyed all of this, so I would ask for a motion regarding that. Ben?
Second?
Second, Rick. Further discussion? All those in favor? Any, anyone opposed? That motion is carried. Excellent, we'll let them know. We also have a request from two staff, from Dan and Jim as well, to attend the New York State Rural Water Association Conference, which is coming up on May 18th through the 21st. They receive credit for this that they need to have on an ongoing basis to keep their credentials up to date. This is a budgeted item, so we've had that in the budget for them. And they have completed the application. So I would ask for a motion.
Make a motion.
Kevin? Second by Bobby. Brian? Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's carried. Okay. We have that, all right. We also have a request for the farmer's market, which has been, the last year or so, has been utilizing the armory. And the farmer's market would like to come back to the park, and they'd like to do that on a Wednesday to tie into the band concerts, so late afternoon. And I would like to entertain a motion on that.
Motion.
Bob? Second, Karen? Okay, further discussion?
Do we have a time on that?
Would be late afternoon. They had pretty standard
I
hours.
thought it says like 2 or something. I
Two
thought
to
it was 2
4, I
o'clock.
think.
Was it
Yeah,
2 to,
right
I
there.
thought, I'm thinking 4 to something, so maybe I'm off.
Yeah.
But it would be in the afternoon. And I think with the concert, hopefully, you know,
Right.
would tie in a little bit
Yep.
longer as well. So are we good with that? That motion's carried, okay.
I think we got a vote. We got motions for the votes.
We
Right?
haven't voted yet.
Oh,
We had
okay.
discussion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Great.
I think it was on Facebook, the times, I forget.
An announcement, I may not have the exact date, but it's my understanding that the Hoosick Falls Country Club will be opening up the week of the 20th. Tomorrow, you're telling me?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, great,
Members night tonight and then tomorrow.
Terrific.
Okay.
terrific. It's been a long time coming back, so hopefully that will be very, very successful. We certainly wish them well with that. Okay,
Somebody's helping out with the parade.
all right, the Memorial Day Parade. Kevin, I understand you're gonna be taking a leadership role in that?
Well, helping them out, the American Legion.
Okay. And the details, do you have?
I don't have many more details other than it's the 25th of May on a Monday at 10 o'clock.
Okay, we got lineup at 9:15. Parade steps off at 10, so we'd be coming from the park.
Right.
And as more information becomes available, we will get that out there. Will you also be getting information about some of the other ceremonies that go along with the parade?
They're meeting tonight to work on that at the American Legion.
Okay, and once we have that information, we'll try and get it out.
Hopefully be a speaker again.
Okay, but
Well, they do a morning thing
some of
too,
the
right?
different, yeah,
Yeah, they
Bless,
start at 8 o'clock in the morning and
right.
stop at different monuments throughout the village.
yeah, sometimes it's not always clear exactly when it's gonna be going on, so we just wanna make sure the word gets out there.
Okay.
That would be put on the website.
Yeah, that would be good. Okay. Hmm?
I didn't really want to do that.
Yeah, no, that's all right. What I'm just looking for, though, is we had, the flag collection. We've been asked to utilize the foyer here in the municipal hall, for the collection of flags. Joyce Brewer has been working, and I believe with Gail Smith,
Girl Scouts.
through the Girl Scouts, is it? Okay.
Boys
Yeah.
for Vet, I think, isn't it?
No, that particular flag thing is Girl Scouts.
So they've asked to have a collection center be placed here so that they can collect the flags if the Girl Scouts then are
Yep.
doing this? You've got that, okay.
Basically, torn or tattered, weather-worn flags is what they're looking for. And they're gonna cut them up and do something with the
The
pieces.
stars.
Yeah.
They cut out the stars.
Yeah, so it's, if you got nice flags, keep them and hang them on your house. But if you got old tattered flags, that's what they're looking for.
Okay, so we'll have something set up here in the foyer for that to collect those. Okay. Do we want a motion for that? All right, I'll ask for a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Rick? Okay.
Second.
Bobby, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we will do that. That passes, great. Okay. We've got that. That. What else for announcements?
I didn't know if you wanted to mention something.
I'll mention this when we get into Hoosick Rising. I'll talk a little bit about that. Okay. So make sure we didn't leave anybody out. Okay. All right, treasurer's report.
Taking a look at March 2015 as opposed to last month, the February statement. Although we're not out of the woods yet, money-wise, we're in a lot better shape than we were a month ago. We had $58,000 in sales tax revenue come in. Also, the CHIPS money for $77,000 came in, which was not there last month. And we also received money for the DWI program. And also the last utility bills went out today. So we're on pace where we're supposed to be for this time of the year. But the infusion of money this past month with those three things in particular make us look a whole lot better. So
And
not
how
quite
much was
as,
the
not quite
DWI
as,
money?
say it again?
How much was the DWI money?
7,400. It's the total through March of 15 is 10,500. We were at about 3,100 before this month in March, and we're budgeted for 11,000, so we've got another 500 or so to go.
Thanks.
Yep.
Any further discussion regarding the treasurer's report? There being none, is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Rick?
Second?
Kevin, second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The report is accepted. Police report, chief?
For this month, we had, 118 calls. There was 2 for property damage, personal injury, auto accidents. There was 2 drug possessions, 6 suspicious vehicles, 5 open doors, 5 traffic arrests that include DWIs as well, 10 domestics, 1 danger and welfare. There was 2 disputes involving neighbors, or I'm sorry, 12. There's 3 larcenies, 17 aids to assist the fire department, EMS as well as DPW, 8 harassment, 9 investigations, 2 code enforcement, 4 trespassing, criminal mischief. There's 3 sex register reports, 2 simple assaults, 5 animal complaints, 5 bad checks, 2 unattended deaths, 1 mental health 2 property loss retrieves, 5 civil matters. There was a total of 11 arrests for the month. They include DWIs, harassment, warrant, larceny, unlawful possession of marijuana. I want to thank Kevin and Marie. They did a fantastic job for the St. Patrick's Day Parade. They went off very smooth. We've had very little problems. So I think between the bars that worked with us, Kevin and Marie, it went very, very well. I just want to touch base. There's been a number of burglaries, larcenies that have been occurring outside the village. We've been keeping in touch with the state police and the sheriff's department on them. There have been some arrests. We're receiving a lot of phone calls from residents outside the village. Some of those have been requests to beef up patrols, which you advise that they're gonna have to take those concerns to the state police and the sheriffs. One thing though is that we had some individuals that were wandering through the village on suspicious vehicles. Our guys, as well as people calling, residents calling, advising of them, getting the plate numbers down. It's become valuable information. We've been able to pass that on to the outside agencies and letting them be aware of it. Sometimes something simple that people may not think is important turns out to be important. So please, I encourage anybody who thinks something doesn't look right, whether it's a vehicle or a person, whatever that may be, please give us a call and we'll follow up on that.
Chief, have you noticed that, that's increased? You talk about it every single month when you're here in your report. Have you noticed that the calls are going up from residents in the village that are talking about concerns of suspicious vehicles, suspicious people, things like
Yes.
that? It is increasing?
Just little things. We've received calls from people that have been inside the stores, whether it's been Cumberland Farms, Stewart's, Cumberland Farms late at night, that they've taken upon themselves to give us a call and say, that just doesn't look right over there. Patrols go over, do a walkthrough and usually disperses the crowd rather quickly, or the person, or we gather their name, ask them a question as to who they are. And, if it's outside, we'll run and make sure that they're not wanted. Something like that happened today. An individual on a bike, he was wanted out of the city of Troy. Someone called up and said it just wasn't right. We ran him when we got over there, and there was a warrant out for him, so we passed him on to the city of Troy.
Good, thank you.
The 5K run is gonna be Saturday. We've met with them again. They're gonna have 12 volunteers to assist us. We'll have additional patrols that are gonna be out in the morning. You're gonna start seeing the bike patrol. The bike patrols are out. Bike patrol will be here Saturday, as well. So the bike patrol is going really well. Guys are getting, anxious to get out there as well, and start riding that bike. So that's something you'll see during the evening hours, sometime during the day, midnights, maybe not. But you'll start seeing that out there. I'd like to have, we talked about the open burn. We're starting to get calls about this. And I know, Rick, I think we've got it on Facebook, I think. May 15th is, you can't have any open burns until May 15th. That's not anything that we've passed here, but it's by the state. People are starting to have these burns, and we're having to address it. And Dave and I have talked about these new open pits that they have that are being sold at the stores and stuff. I think we need to take a look at these, find out what is allowed and what's not allowed, what's concerned, what some of our concerns would be, and we talked to Mark about that as well. So I think we need to take a look at these different burners that they're using out in their backyard. And we have to come to some kind of an agreement as to what they can have and what they can't have. Some of these towns, I think, are charging a permit for people to have open burns, like with these type of burns, so it might be something you might wanna, not that I'm looking to put fees on anybody, but it's something, again, that's an option out there that you can look at. It might be a little bit more specific as what they can have and what they can't have. Other than that, with the loss of Harold, it's a great loss to the police department. I think it's a great win for the village to put him on as our judge. It's gonna be hard to replace, and that's one position there that we're gonna take our time to look at, to decide who and when and if we're gonna fill it, because they're big shoes to fill there, so. My loss, your gain. Other than that, I think that we're all set.
There was an accident in front of the Cheney Library a couple months ago, maybe 4 months ago. There was some property damage there, village property. Will that Does that get passed on to the clerk, or, so they know that, put that against their
Depending on
insurance?
what the property, if it's a light post or something of that nature, yes.
Well, there was a trash can, a bench, and something else.
Okay, I'd have to look into that. It goes on the accident report, so the insurance companies of the person who caused the accident is there. And we've done, sometimes, you know, we have to get the amount of damage that's there, so we can forward it over to our insurance company to forward over to their insurance company, so.
Because I think you lost 2 benches and the trash receptacle in the accident, so we should follow through on that and try to recoup that.
I'll look into that, find out where it stands right now.
Okay. Anything else for the chief? No? Okay, thank you. Code enforcement report?
First report here, I started, late in the month. Was able to, I didn't have a chance to talk to Ed today, because he was out on site. So, but looking back on stuff, I was able to pull up I know we did 5 building permits, we did 5 apartment inspections, 1 demolition permit, we red tagged 1 house, also red tagged the furnace in the house. Issued 5 citations, received approximately 10 complaints, did 1 other inspection for a special inspection that was on the Mechanic Street house. Approximately 15 site visits, 1 fire call, 2 meetings, and we had 1 mail request for some information out of work.
It's been very busy.
Very good.
So, and this is, if there's specific information that you're looking for going forward, we have the new computer software was installed last week. So, you know, as we get in and more information gets entered, I'll be able to do some more reports. But if there's something specific that you're looking for, just let me know and we'll start tracking it.
Okay.
Mark, what does red tag mean?
We took it out of service. The red tag that happened, actually, we ended up getting the police involved. It was a serious safety issue. So we had to remove people from the home.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No? Village clerk's report?
Since last month, as probably y'all can see, they've been renovating our office out here, everywhere. So it's kind of been a mess, a real mess. But we did get the water bills out, Ben said today. With a few little incidents with the postage machine, the folder break and whatnot. We've done property tax searches, and we also sent out over 70 leak letters. So
70
leak,
water
70
leaks?
residents who have leaks. So that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's going down though.
It's going down, Jim?
What kind of leaks? It used to be, when we
Just,
first started,
uh,
like
the-
300.
When Jim goes around with, yeah, go ahead.
What was it?
At one time, they used to be around 300, and they have gone down considerably. People have called me and Josh, and we have gone and checked it out and told them what the issues are. A lot of people have fixed their problems, but then there's others that just don't want, they don't care.
What kind of leaks, Jim?
Like toilets, sinks.
Inside leaks, not
Yeah,
like a water
inside
line?
the house, not outside, it's all inside. The meter owner reads beyond where the water goes. What was the other thing you were gonna say? About the bills? And then we have a
Always got
lot
the
of people
normal
still.
no reads and whatnot, but.
Yeah,
But they've gone out, there's a few that, with the new program, have to be straightened out, but bills went out today, amen. And that's the end of my report.
Okay.
Amen.
Amen.
Since you mentioned renovations, I want to take just a quick moment. Obviously, as you were walking in, you can see there's a tremendous amount of work has been done here in the Village Hall. Police Department over the fall did a lot of work. They've renovated, made it much more professional, much more usable space. Neil Stoll and Jerry McAuliffe and Community Services put in a lot of hours here, painting, cleaning. We now have an exit door over here for the bench, for the court. We had been gigged on that a few years ago. It's a safety factor. It just didn't get done. Now it has been done. Everything that could possibly be reused has been. The door that used to be there is now over there. Countertops were reused. Very, very, very efficient. So to Neil, to Jerry, to all of the folks that work so very, very hard, we're very, very, very pleased. Clearly, the rugs have been taken up. It was a grant that the court obtained. And I think over the next week or so, we expect new carpeting to be put in. So that will help with the sound. The only area that I believe still needs to be done or will be done is out in the foyer, and that may be painted. Some talk about that. But everything else is really coming along very, very nicely. So again, I want to thank everyone for that. You talked about a forced review of all the boxes and all the piles. And, you know, what should be kept and what was not kept, and where could you find anything, and where did you lose anything? It was a tough time to keep the office going, but folks were able to do that. And again, it's a significant improvement, and I think we have a much more efficient use of the space. So I want to thank everybody who was involved in that.
Well, we're on that topic, and I just want to ask you, and I probably should ask you outside the meeting, but I forgot to. I know that the door used to have a mail slot on there. How many people actually use that mail slot? Is that gonna be an issue that we don't have a place for people to
No,
drop
well,
things
actually,
in?
that came up yesterday at the staff meeting.
Okay,
So we're gonna be addressing that.
Between
Okay.
chief and our mail, because this door out here is locked after hours. I think it's gonna be out in the front.
okay.
It'd be
So
like a
Always.
lockbox,
Yeah,
yes.
a lockbox.
No,
I was gonna suggest, good.
Yep.
I'm sure people did use that for their bills and stuff at some
Yeah.
point, right?
Yeah.
Some people would, yeah, sure, so we have to get that back in place. Okay, all right. People to be heard.
Yeah,
Okay.
I want to be heard.
Okay, if you would please, just for the record, if you give your name
Sure,
and your
Maggie
residence.
Kinney, Stark Street, Hoosick Falls.
Thank you.
And I hope this is the right venue, and I hope I'm not wasting anybody's time. But my neighbor recently purchased 5 acres worth of land, and he cleared it all, which I believe is his right to do so. However, it was always my understanding that if you're standing in the middle of any of the village streets, that 25 feet on either side of that street is village-owned property. And that was my understanding. So that being said, once the owner buys that property, is he allowed to clear all the trees along the paper road? I don't know the answer to that question, because I always thought no matter what, there's always a paper road. There's always gonna be some type of bush or trees or some type of area on either side of that paper road. And if I'm wrong, that's fine, but just moving forward, if it is always village owned, that 25 feet, like in the future, could this person potentially develop that area? Or if he chooses to sell his property, can the future people develop that area? So that was my question. So moving forward, are there clear and concise rules in place when clearing land that's above higher ground? I mean, we're up on Stark Street, and there's always been an issue of erosion and flooding on the lower lying properties. So I wondered if there were rules, if a land study could be done prior to clearing all the trees, because I've noticed now that there's black plastic and stakes up to help from what I understand, help the land from sliding. Now, had a land study been done, they could have saved some of the trees, and saved potentially someone's, the land from sliding or someone flooding or whatever. I'm not concerned about myself personally. I have streams on both sides of my property, but my neighbors have had, a lot of work done on their properties and down below us, and people along Main Street. I mean, everybody knows that, there's just constant issues with flooding and water troubles down at the bottom of Rogers Avenue, down on Main Street, any of the lower lying areas. So, and if there is something in place, is it a legal signed bound document, and is everyone in agreement, have that be the landowners, the village people, and the people doing the work and clearing the land. And then lastly, when I came home last Tuesday or Monday, there was an excavator 20 feet from my propane tank. And he was about 2 inches from my property line. And there was nobody else was there. He was working singularly, you know, this man had an episode or a heart attack or an accident of some sort, and he, you know, dumped the backhoe or excavator or whatever, there would have been a big problem. So are there any rules that, you know, they're supposed to like work in twos, or, you know, have a backup plan where the landowner is supposed to be home? Just like something that I was just like, you know, or, you know, neighborly rules. You know, I just don't know. But I was under the impression that 25 feet of either side of the village streets are village-owned property. But if someone buys that property, is it still technically village-owned? So could the village come along and say, geez, we need to do this, that, and the other thing? Or am I, you know, I really don't know. So that's why I'm here today. And thank you for your time, and I appreciate everybody's efforts.
Okay, well, you did forward those questions to me, and I forwarded them on to the village attorney, particularly in reference to the 25-foot piece, because I don't know the answer to that,
Right.
and we just didn't know that. So that's something that we're researching to see what's involved.
Great.
John or Mark, are you aware of any type of, picking up on Maggie's second point, any type of concern about contractors working alone with heavy machinery? Do they, is anything required, anything like that?
I know nothing, I mean, I haven't heard of anything like that at all.
No, I did talk to him and I did ask him, and he said, you know, he's a small business guy, he's the only operator, and, you know, it's his business, and that's how he operates.
So there's no law that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
Dave, the only time is when they get into a ditch and it's a certain height, they have to put a box in there. It's like a big metal box that you see on the side of the road. They'll place it's like a trench, whatever, so trench thing there that they put in there for safety reasons, but I don't think, I mean, I'm in the construction end of it as well, and there's no rules that say two people, unless you're in the bigger projects and OSHA gets involved in, but on these local projects, I believe it is.
I think the paper streets up there is a legitimate question that needs to be answered, because there are other paper streets up there where the same thing potentially could happen again. And I think that, talking to Maggie, that was one of her concerns also, to answer that question, so that hopefully that doesn't happen again. In this particular case, they bought property both sides of that paper street. So they just kind of cleared the whole lot.
Was that Stark Street?
Yes.
I think that was an approved subdivision, so there might be some stipulations within the subdivision agreement to begin with. I don't
Right,
know.
all the mights and maybes and thinks, and those are I really think are valid concerns that moving forward, you know, it would really be nice to have answers to those questions, and rather than, I think maybe somewhere, let's find, you know, I'm like a let's find out kind of person, because I brought my survey, I was honestly under the impression that, you know, all the way up Stark Street, and if you go up Rogers Avenue, all the way up Rogers Avenue, there are proposed paper streets. And every one of those paper streets has at least 10 feet of woody tree kind of, you know, brush or trees on the sides of the road, like all the way up. And so I was I called, or I talked to the landowners, and I asked them, I thanked them for respecting my property lines, but I also wondered if they were respecting the village-owned properties, because they bought everything. So does the paper road become null and void now, or is it really legitimately a paper road? Because if, you know, not that I'm going to move, but someone else might be like, geez, I don't want that. I don't want these people, you know, clearing that property. You know what I mean? Give someone a choice. I mean, I have no plans to move. I have a great property. I have privacy. I have what I need. But like I said, moving forward, and the folks, you know, down the street. But anyway, like my.
We'll research that.
Yeah, that
piece
would
of
be
it then.
great.
John?
Well, see, the thing is, when it comes to paper streets, one of the most confusing and difficult in real property law. I think the first thing that has to be done whenever you have a question like this is, and this is something that I'd have to address to Ann, is do we carry that street as a named street in our inventory? And have we ever maintained it?
Well, like Maggie said, most of them, like Center Street, TRE is up there, there's a Gulf Street, and
There's
there's
Gulf.
a couple others.
Yeah.
So they're not paper streets. The next question then is this particular street, has it ever been dedicated to the village? Because there's a process you go through to dedicate it. I don't remember anything like that.
Well, it's not
Stark
paved,
Street,
it's
you
not paved, so it's not up to specs. The
Big
village
pardon?
would have to take it over, it was paved afterwards, right?
I'm sorry, I can't.
The village would have to have it paved before they would take it over, right? So-
Well, actually, there's, usually what we do is we have a series of direction that is given usually by the code enforcement officer years ago, and of course was a building inspector. The whole idea was that we had certain rules, and the rules basically were based on whatever the head of the DPW wanted. Okay, now, I don't think we've ever formalized that. They have in other villages. We could do that. There wasn't a tremendous amount of building. When there were subdivisions, like in the 80s and things like that, then there were dedications that were done, but I don't know about this particular one. And the dedications always also went along with the fact that we had to make sure that the streets were up to, including the drainage and everything was up to what we wanted.
Another question is, leading to that, is the subdivisions that are granted 30 years ago, are they always open-ended, or is there a time lapse on those?
Well, if you, let's see if I can understand the question. I mean, if they were subdivided, then can they, unless there was some, when the subdivision was granted, of course, would have to go through subdivision approval. And if the planning board decided that they wanted certain criteria associated with that, then if that had not been done by a certain particular time, like if the motion of the planning board said by such and such a time the following things have to be done, then probably not. You probably would be open-ended. Okay? But to answer the question as to whether or not this is a dedicated street, I still think that should be pursued.
So we have to check on that.
Right, and the only way you can do that would have to be checked through the clerk's office to see if we have a resolution was done sometime. Okay, and so that's number one. Number two, when it comes to the kind of rules that you put together for the acceptance of a street, that can be formalized if you would like to have that done.
So we
If you
should
think
take a
there's
look
gonna
at
be
that.
more building,
Mhm.
maybe you might wanna consider that. After all, you're redoing all the zoning, this might be a good time to consider that too.
Sure.
Okay?
And this is dated 1913, Knollwood Village Lots, Hoosick Falls, New York, prepared by James McCarthy, engineer dated 1913 and filed in the Rensselaer County Clerk's office. So, I mean, it's a long
Can I
one.
take a look at it?
Absolutely, thank you. So, but thank you, I appreciate it.
2002, yeah, so this would have gone through subdivision.
So we'll take a look at that, John, and you'll,
Yeah, that's and this is Brian P. and Margaret M. McKinney.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, so you have this, but that's just,
That's just my survey.
that's just your survey, but it must be based on an earlier subdivision then, right?
Right, yep, that Knollwood development.
No.
And I know my neighbors had their survey done as well. And, it was just, just a legitimate concern, like, the trees, the pine trees that are in front of my house, and they're huge pine trees, and the fire hydrant, for example, they appear to be on my property, but they're technically village-owned property. So it was my understanding that the village can take that property if they need it, but I could also cut down those trees if I wanted to. It's like a little vague. I don't really. So that's why I'm
Well,
here.
is it an ownership thing or is it a right-of-way thing, John, generally?
Am I improperly using the word paper road? I mean, maybe
Well,
I'm saying
that's
paper
why-
road because it's
see,
on
when you-
paper.
Whenever you say paper road, that's why I always ask the question of whether it's on the inventory of streets for the village or the town. And then
Yeah,
the-
so I would think so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Well, that would be largely dependent upon whether they've been dedicated to the village. And if it's dedicated to the village, then and it's maintained, then it's a village road. Otherwise, what it is, it's a road by prescription and use, which is also, that's why I say it gets very confusing
Right.
in real estate. But the long and the short of it is, if the village has been maintaining the street, it'd be very hard to argue that it's not our road, but it would also not necessarily mean we own what they call the fee or the title to the road. We may not own that. In terms of the 25 foot, that's 25 feet would have to be done from the crown of the road, which only a surveyor could figure out for you.
Right.
And that 25 feet isn't always the case. If it's been dedicated at a smaller, as a smaller road, which has been done in the past and other places, maybe even here also, then you have another issue that comes up is whether or not what kind of road you really have there. Do you have a right of way? Do you almost like a footpath or something where farm vehicles can go over? So that requires a title search of that particular piece to find out what over the last 100 or 125 years it's actually been done up there. Because sometimes the roads were based on usage. I don't want to get too deep into it,
Okay,
but,
so again, we'll need to pursue this,
yeah,
see
absolutely.
what we can come up with.
But a bigger question, as far as property clearing, if it's a problem property that's obviously hilly and stuff, does a developer, are they required to mitigate that if they clear?
Only if the planning board sees that as an issue and says if you're going to subdivide, then you're going to have to.
Put a collection pond or something.
Yeah, and in order to create green space, that's not a new issue, but it's newer than the last 20 or 30 years where people are, you recall for years when they would do subdivisions, they'd cut everything down and then the place would be cleared and then they put their houses in. People realize it's not the way to go anymore. But what happened during that particular subdivision, only the minutes of the planning board would be able to tell you.
So we've got some digging to do, to take a look at.
Thank you.
Big one.
Got some digging to do, to look at this, to research this.
You could spend a ton of time on this, and I think it's something that should be addressed.
Well, John, I think what happened, Ed Donovan actually owned the land. He opened up Gulf Street and Grandview, the one above you. And did you ever talk to him about that? Because he wanted, Ed Donovan?
No.
Because he wanted to develop all that land from Rapper. Basically, I think the two streets come right around. And I watched him put Gulf Street right down the middle of Sam Scaglione's property, right through the garden and, same thing, tearing down trees, and it was horrible at the time, but, so yeah. So you'll have to check and see, but.
Okay,
Thank you.
we'll check it out, we'll keep moving forward with it then. Thank you, Norma.
Thank you.
Anyone else to be heard?
Thank you.
Yes.
Keith Sipperly again, 5 West Street. I just want to say congratulations to everyone for the last election.
Oh, okay.
Very nice.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Is Harold still around or no?
No, Harold.
Harold's left. Now that Harold is the acting justice, maybe the board should get together with him and talk about the police officers writing more tickets, local ordinances, for speeding tickets. You could bring in a lot more revenue, in my opinion. The state, in my opinion, steals a lot of our money that should come back into our community. I mean no disrespect by saying this to the board, and I would like to say thank you for Bob Downing for thinking of the appointment of Mark Serdam, the town supervisor, a little more ethically than the rest. I can't believe for 1 second that every single one of you didn't say to yourself, even in the back of your mind, this is a little fishy. We're going to keep the salary the same, lay off a man, I don't know the situation, nor do I care, of Mr. Holland, and then we're going to give the supervisor, after he leaves his position, benefits. I don't understand that. And I don't care if it's Mark Serdam or my friend Kevin Allard. I'd be right here in front of you, no matter what. I'm a taxpayer, and that's what my concerns are. So, Bob, thank you. My other concern is, I know there's some issues, as the other two members at the end that have been on the town board, know, there's issues with the concession stand. Now, who is going to approve any inspection over at the town pool? Are you going to hire another individual, or are you going to have Mr. Sudam, town supervisor / building inspector, which one are you today, go over there and inspect any kind of renovations? Serious concerns, serious issues.
May I address that? Can we address these
Absolutely,
issues?
yes, absolutely.
First of all, I'd like to say I was in the interview process for the building inspector, and I'm not ashamed to say that Mark was our best candidate. We narrowed it down to 2 people. The other guy dropped out at the last, right before the last interview, so we had one person to fill it. We decided a long time ago to go with a full-time position on this. Our previous building inspector, we did not fire him. He left of his own accord. And this is a position that requires full-time. It really is. You know, I've been on this board for a long time, and I can tell you, it should be a full-time position, particularly if we're gonna try to get some developments going on. As far as your ethic issues, we did talk to Ed King about that, and Ed King says he sometimes works with Pittstown and other towns if there's an ethical question, and that we could probably do the same thing. Borrow a building inspector from a cooperative town to do those kind of inspections if there's a question of ethics that comes into it. We've already dotted our i's and crossed our t's as far as that issue. We have considered all these things, and we have considered that the perception of the community might be exactly what you're bringing up right now, but everything's above board. It really is.
Well, I thank you for explaining the situation. I still hold the same concerns, but thank you very much. Now, because I know there's a lot of renovations that are going to go on with the pool.
So I get, the only question I have, Keith, regarding this.
Sure.
So you don't think that Mark Sudam, as the building inspector, would do his job? He would make sure that the town got what they needed as a town supervisor?
No, absolutely not. He's an elected official on one hand, he's an appointed official by the village of Hoosick Falls. To me, there's a concern being paid basically by all the taxpayers, and actually the village taxpayers twice, for doing a job during the day, not knowing which job he is doing. That's my concern.
And your concern is duly noted.
Thank you. I just got an email from Ann. She denied my FOIL request. I understand her perception of the whole thing and denying my FOIL request because I did not pay for a FOIL request that I previously asked for, I think it was last year. However, I explained to Ann how the law is written. If an individual emails a FOIL's officer and asks for, let's say, in my case, a copy of the policies and procedural manual, you are supposed to get back to that individual and tell them how much it will be per page and how many pages. Would you still like me to copy it? That was not done. You went ahead and you just copied it. So when I came here, you hit me with, yeah, it's $181. Nobody, 100 what?
118.
Excuse me, 118. Made it a little better, I guess, but I'm still not gonna buy it. So then I go ahead and ask for a $1 DVD. Okay, another correction, thank you. $2 DVD, and she denied it. I think if you look at the opinion of Bob Freeman, you're going to find out otherwise. And to me, a $2 DVD is a lot less expensive than an Article 78.
What was the last part? A what?
Is a lot less expensive than an Article 78. And one other thing, Bob, I know in the past you have done some, I don't know what enforcement of out-of-state plates. Are you still doing that?
In the village.
In the village?
Yes.
Are we hitting individuals that are driving around, living in our community, not participating to our taxes? Like, we
I
are.
know exactly what you're saying, and sometimes it's difficult, because when you stop them, they're gonna tell you, I'm visiting, okay? So what we've been trying to do is to work with the landlords on who's living there, and then we can kinda monitor it that way. They come and go, Keith, it's very difficult sometimes, and just to stop someone because they're driving an out-of-state plate,
Oh, sure,
that can't
I
be,
understand, that's a lawsuit.
usually in conversation with people on a legitimate probable cause stop, we can find out roughly where they're living. Or if we see a person driving a particular vehicle constantly and being parked at a house, that's what's bringing our attention, that we start talking to the landlords and asking who's living there. And then they've been asked to remind their tenants that they have to register the vehicle as well as their license.
On a final note, I just wanna say thank you to the water and sewer, the highway, and the police department. I know that every winter is hard, and a lot of people really don't appreciate you. I work in the same situation. I shouldn't say a lot of people don't appreciate you. Some people really give you a hard time. You're in their way, you're plowing snow on their sidewalk, and to me, you plow only plows one way, but maybe people have special plows. And thank you to the police department. I've noticed you're up around my area, even at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's nice to see. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else to be heard? Yes.
Yes, Kevin Allard, Town of Hoosick. I'm going to disagree with Mr. Sipperly on the position of building inspector being full-time. The position of building inspector full-time is something that should have been done a long, long time ago.
And it has been now.
Yeah, and it has been now.
Good.
Making deliveries out in the village, I've seen things that maybe some people can't get around to see. And if he does his job the way he's supposed to, he's gonna make some enemies. And they're gonna be well intended. No, they're gonna be well intended, because it needs to be done. I mean, that's all there is to it. On the building inspector's part, though, I've been coming here since last year asking for the state report. Okay? I asked for 2013, we're into 2015. Can you give me an update as to how close you're gonna be on that, as to getting that done? I know.
Mark will be working on that. We'll get that out,
You
and
probably
whatever
just
is.
heard of this now, didn't you, Mark?
Ed mentioned something about a state report.
The town files one every year, and it's, you can go right online, you can get the forms, you can download it right online. Every
We'll be
village-
following up on that.
Okay. And what Mr. Sipperly was talking about, as far as Mr. Serdam, it's called dual loyalties. And where does his loyalties lie whenever he makes a decision? And that's covered under Article 18 of the New York State Laws Code of Ethics.
Well, thank you very much for that information. We have shared that with the village attorney, and we're comfortable with the situation that we have.
Okay, that's good. When do you accept FOILs? Do you have a FOIL policy, from what I understand?
We do.
So when do you accept FOILs? Is it during the day, anytime? Okay. I have one for you right now.
Do you have anything else?
I just want to make a copy of the minutes appointing Mark, and I want to send that over to the, both the Attorney General's office and the State Controller's office to get an opinion, because it is kind of unique.
I'm sure they'll be
that.
pleased to hear from you.
And your attorney could do that, you could do that too, and get that opinion, and it would probably settle everything.
I did get both opinions from the New York State Association of Towns and the NICOM.
Excuse me?
We got opinions from NICOM and the Association of Towns on that subject,
Could you share that with us?
that they approved of, they saw.
Well,
no
those
problem
opinions,
with
do you
that.
have copies of those opinions?
No,
So how did you get the opinions?
we called them and asked them about that.
So you just
The
talked?
legalities of that, yeah, we did.
Okay, but there's nothing in writing, there's not like a State Controller's opinion or Attorney General's opinion?
There could be, and that's something that we'll talk to the village attorney about.
Okay, and the other thing is, if Anne Marie doesn't give you a copy of the tape for the meeting, I know your wife would probably enjoy a copy of that tape, so she could FOIL for that and get that for you.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving along, committee reports.
I don't have anything this month, but make one correction from last month. Do not send your paint to the transfer station because it was in the paper. I think one of the reporters got it mixed up. They said that you could send your paint to the transfer station. Because we were talking about opening an extra
I thought we
day.
couldn't do oil-based paint, but we
The
could do
paint.
latex.
That latex you can't, because like I said, you gotta send it to the warehouse because there's money involved and we don't wanna get into money situations, collecting money for it.
Okay, I guess I misunderstood that. So we cannot be bringing paint up
No,
yet?
you shouldn't be bringing it there. If you have a lot, call the number, you have that on,
Yeah,
okay, call that number. If you have a lot of paint, somebody will come out and pick it up. But do not
At your
send it to
house.
the transfer station.
At your house.
Yeah, you gotta have a lot of paint, you know, not 2 or 3 cans, you know, not gonna come after that. 10,
We can get the
15.
neighbors.
You can collect the neighbors if you want, that's fine, and just as long as you have a lot of paint. But
Okay.
That's a
they
good
did
idea.
put it in the paper that you could, but we just
Okay,
don't
so we
wanna,
need to
if
correct
you wanna
that.
get involved in
but
money
if you just got a
situation.
couple gallons, they need to take it to the warehouse.
Right.
Right.
Like, if you wanna get involved with
Okay.
taking money and get into, that's fine, but it's a situation where they have to collect $2 or whatever for the paint, so they can switch it out through, so. That's a
Okay.
correction, it was in the paper, and Mr. Preble was coming after me about it.
Ah, okay. All right,
That's the
correction
correction
made.
that I have. Thank you.
Thanks. Karen?
Mine would just be if there's a street light out to notify the town, or I mean the inn. Okay, just people are noticing, I think more are out walking now at night and
Mm-hmm.
I get a
feel
lot of it,
it's,
yeah.
yeah.
Right. A lot, you mean?
No, I meant people are, a lot more people
Yeah.
are out walking.
get-
They
Yeah.
should be fixed, Kevin, right?
They should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Streetlights, okay. I'll
Okay.
ask Bob to have his officers keep checking because that's where I get most of
I
them.
know.
Ben?
Department of Health inspected the water plant towards the end of March. I was told that the inspection went very well as far as how the water department came out very clean. As far as the plant's concerned, other than that, not a lot to say.
Okay.
One thing to add. May 11th, May 12th,
Hydrants.
hydrant flush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
May 11th is wards 2 and 3. May 12th is 1 and 4. And if anybody has any issues with water afterwards, all I can say is just let your water run until it clears up.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep, thank you.
Excellent. Spring is here, the greenway is open, it's thawed. I walked it over the weekend, it is surprisingly free of litter. And it's good walking if people haven't used it. Neil and his crew installed the kiosk at the southern end today, yesterday. And so we're gonna get the signage on that, maybe put a little bit of landscaping around it and whatnot. A request has been made for us to submit an application for possible grant money, additional grant money to help us with projects on the Greenway, and we've submitted that application. We'll see if a response comes in there. As far as the economic development, we have had some smaller banners made for Hoosick Rising, which we're gonna approach other projects that are happening in the village to hang the Hoosick Rising banners, I believe on John Street. And Jason Von Guinness's project at St. Mary's have agreed to hang the smaller banners.
Ray
There's-
Marshall as well.
Right. There's a Hoosick Rising Facebook page now, if anybody wants to check that out. We're gonna try to keep that updated as well. And just one other thing I wanted to mention, the building that was red tagged. We became aware of that building from somebody submitting an online nuisance form. These things do work. So I hope that if people see a nuisance in the village, that they will submit an online nuisance form or come in and fill, we have paper forms to fill out too, right, Ann? At the village clerk's office. And it does make a difference because that was not a safe situation, and
it was inside the building, so we might not have known about it if somebody didn't, a visitor didn't see it and report it to us. So please use those nuisance forms and keep Mark busy. That's about it.
All right, thank you. Bob?
I just have one thing, that I spoke with Neil earlier, and, just wanted to let people know that the village highway is not picking up leaves in the spring. That's a fall and winter, deal, so please, if you rake up your leaves, take care of them yourself, don't burn them, but take care of them. The transfer station's open on Tuesdays and Saturdays, but don't sweep them out onto the street for the highway department to pick up, because they're not gonna pick them up, so please help out. And it's great that everybody's getting out, sweeping up and cleaning in front of their houses, and if everybody did that, that would be a wonderful thing, you know, and that would help immensely. And the street cleaning will get started like the first week of June. Right now, they're just doing lots of other cleanup at the priorities, and taking care of the main highway, and as far as the main roads, as far as the street cleaning, and that'll be starting the first couple weeks of June. So, other than that, I'm all set.
Okay, great. Kevin?
At the wastewater treatment plant, the crew there brought in 86,000 gallons of sludge for a total of $4,340. So we had a good month there, bringing in outside waste.
It adds up.
We also talked about doing a sign out in front of the village office.
Mm-hmm.
Got some designs, and actually, the last couple of days talked to her about making it look sort of like the other signs we just had put up, and they did that, and I to share that with.
Okay.
The only thing missing really is the Grandma Moses part,
Okay.
and the cost of the sign would be, for the sign itself, is $375.
How much?
$375.
And what's the time frame on something like that?
I think it could be done within 2 weeks.
Okay. Okay. And I know you were maybe looking at another option as well, or no?
Well, I looked into just potentially putting some letters on the pediment above the front door that just said Village Hall, so people know it's a Village Hall. And I looked in, we can get black PVC letters. You never have to paint them. You just mount them up there. If we just got Village Hall, that's I think was around $70 plus shipping. And if we got Hoosick Falls in smaller lettering, just above the door, underneath the fan that's up there, that's around $130 for the whole thing.
Okay. So we would have that option, and then we have something here that would be more specific to the actual offices
Right,
that are,
yeah.
that are based here in the Village Hall. So again, if the board wants to think about that, we could certainly bring that up at the May meeting and see if there's a particular direction we'd like to go in. Monolith, by the way, will also be doing some work out front with the display unit. All three solar panel installations are all operational now, including the display out here, and they're gonna be putting in some hedges or some shrubbery. We're gonna be looking at putting a bench in there, moving the bench that's out there, painting that as well, so that it'll blend in a little bit more. So that'll be happening around the spring too. And we could take a look and see, where, if we were gonna put a sign out front, where it would go and still be seen. So we'll talk about that in the May meeting. Sound good?
Yep.
Okay.
Do we know how big that is? It gonna be the same size as the other ones, or larger?
No, I
or-
think it was a little smaller. I think it's 38 by 30.
Okay. Anything else, Kevin?
No, that's it.
All right, thank you. All right, old business. We recently filled a highway vacancy. We recently filled a position there, and he started last week?
Last week.
Yes, he started the 6th.
The 6th?
Yep, the 6th was his first day.
Okay, so we need to formalize that. We are now at full staff on the highway department. So is there a motion?
Make that motion.
I'll second that.
Bobby, Rick, second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion's carried, thank you. I want to give a very brief update on the water system. Not so much what Jim was talking about before in terms of hydrant flushing. Village clerk mentioned that the bills are going out, the water bills are going out. There's also a letter from myself to all village residents, village users of water, I should say, not just village residents, explaining where we are. And basically what we have done is we have continued to take samples. We are working with New York State, Rensselaer County. We've also spoken with New Jersey Department of Public Health. We've spent over $10,000 in sampling, and we are now looking at putting together a spreadsheet that the county's going to keep to give us a better idea of where the PFOA may be and the different amounts. We had a meeting about 3 weeks ago with all the advisory parties that we've been working with, including engineering firms, local industry, a village resident, board members. And we've determined that the next step is to go forward with a pilot project. I'm going to be talking with some folks tomorrow about that. We have two options for the pilot project. The first option is to bring in a mobile unit at the water plant itself. Initial estimates have been anywhere from $40,000 to $15,000, $15,000 to $40,000. It's hard to really pin it down at this point in time. There's a second option that we're going to be talking about, and that's where a significant water sample is taken and sent to a plant in Pittsburgh that specializes with carbon filtering, and they will be able to test water over several weeks, test our water over a several week period, and they will also be able to run a lifespan, if you will, on the carbon filters to give us an idea of how long they would last, what kind of mileage you might be able to expect from them. That's really the next step. I've also been in touch with all of our elected representatives, county, state, as well as federal. Those that have responded have indicated that they want to work with us. They are supporting us. I recently, yesterday, spoke with staff from Senator Marchionne's office regarding money that may be in the new New York State budget, the one that just went into effect as of April 1st. There could be some funds there that we might be able to use to offset the costs of the sampling and the pilot project. We do have those monies included in this year's budget. We'll talk a little bit about that as we go forward. But we are moving forward with it. New York State Department of Health has indicated that they are going to pursue certification so that they will be able to provide sampling for us, water sampling at no charge, and that will be a significant savings long term, because we're going to be in the sampling business for quite a while. This is not a quick fix. So we're going to be doing that. The state, again, continues to monitor the situation, works with us, and we're going to keep working with them, the county as well. So we're doing everything that possibly can be done. As Ben mentioned, from the routine compliance issues, from the plant's perspective, we continue to exceed all of those. We are not out of compliance. That's part of the catch-22 that we're dealing with here, and that's why we're going to need some help from our elected representatives in terms of a long-term fix and coming up with the funding for that. They all say that they recognize the issue and that they want to work with us around that. So again, we're going to be keeping everybody up to speed on that, keeping the information current, and we will continue to go forward. And this is going to be resolved. All right. At our last two meetings, I have neglected to mention, and I've just forgotten. You may recall in our February board meeting, we indicated that we needed to put out to bid for a fuel oil and for diesel. Well, a mistake was made. We did not. The contract was still good through the end of May. But we did put that out to bid. Doug's Oil responded. Doug's Oil did nothing wrong. They responded appropriately, fully, all of those kinds of things. So for about a 3-month period, we have two contracts. So we're trying to balance the two out and get the best benefit that we possibly can. It was an error. It was my error. It will not happen again. It's something that we are working on. So we have that. I wanted to make sure people were aware of that. Hoosick Rising update. We had a Hoosick Rising meeting out at the Hoosick School a couple of weeks ago. Our next Hoosick Rising meeting will be held at Brown's Brewery on Wednesday, June 6th. Information will be going out about that. We have a number of projects that people are working on. The economic development plan, the strategy, if you will, or hard copies are made available. We're in a 2 or 3 week period where we're asking for public comment. There are currently copies at Maggie's across the street. There's one at the library, and there's one at Bagels and Brew, and they're also online. So people can take a look at those, and if people are interested in pursuing and working with Hoosick Rising, there are also these forms that we're asking people just to fill out, to give a little bit of background information, and to learn a little bit about what particular areas you might be interested in working in. Maggie?
It's Wednesday, June 3rd.
What did I say?
June 6th
All right.
is the 3rd.
Stay right there, Maggie, don't move. Wednesday, June 3rd. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
And hoosickrising.org is the website, and the documents that Dave just mentioned are there for download as well for people looking at.
And Rick had mentioned previously that we have a number of banners, smaller banners, Hoosick Rising banners, that different folks who are involved, again, at St. Mary's, for example, the former St. Mary's, the building next to the Great Wall, Ray Marshall has just purchased that, and on John Street, Ugel will be putting banners up and in their store windows so that as people drive through, they'll know that these are not abandoned buildings, but buildings that are being worked on. And hopefully we can keep that in the public eye, and we'll be moving forward with that. All right.
Mayor, can I just jump
Yep.
in for a second? Because I've attended every meeting except for one as far as Hoosick Rising is concerned. This is a really good project for folks to get involved in. If you've never been involved in positive change in the village or the town, this is an opportunity for you, especially the younger people, to get involved and really feel good about where we're headed. And if you really want to affect positive change, this is the way to do it. It doesn't take up, it will take up as much time as you want to let it take up. But if you've never been involved before in a spirit of cooperation and trying to get things done, this is the way to do it. Okay, there's a lot of negativity around, and positivity is really great. And if you want to help out and you really want to affect change, you know, dialogue and everything is great. We share a lot of ideas at those meetings, but what we really need is folks that want to make positive change, because we are going to move forward in this village and in the town and in the community, and we want everybody to move forward. We don't want to get stuck or move backwards. It's just not the way we do business anymore. It's not the way it happens. So if you really think that you want to make a change in this village and in the town, then make the change. Show up at the meetings. Help us out. And we'll all move forward together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
This is
Well
honestly
said.
the best opportunity I think we've had, because I've been involved in committees before, and I'm gonna echo what he said. The more people get involved, the better this. This is not a heavy lift to begin with. I mean, we've got a lot of really good people already involved, so anybody who gets involved going forward is really just gonna boost us, but don't join thinking, oh my God, I'm not gonna have the time to do this, and I'm gonna have to overcommit myself. It's, this committee, of all the committees I've been on, is, I think, the best organized and the best, we have the best personnel. There's county, and beyond that are getting involved in this particular committee with us.
And I don't think we've ever had the commitment from the county that we've had, like we have on this particular project. They've really kind of jumped in, they've been at the meetings, they've been showing up and participating. I think it's great. And there's one thing that my wife says that she says it all the time: many hands make light work. Okay, the more people we have involved takes the stress off of the people, and we talked about this at the first meeting. Everybody that came into the first meeting was like, this is another one of those things that we're gonna do, and the same people are gonna be involved, and then it's just gonna fizzle out. And that hasn't happened, because we've had a lot of people show up at the meetings. And we've had upwards of 40 plus. And we even had new people at the last meeting that we had. And I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of people show up at Browns in June.
We've had a couple people online.
Yep.
Ask for, to be part of it as well.
I just think it's a great project to be involved with, that's all. Thanks.
Thanks, Ben.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we mentioned the race route that's coming, the race that's coming up this weekend, and some changes, even though the board did try to come up with a standardized route, some changes were requested by the particular organization. They have a lot of children, a lot of young kids that are involved, and they need to have someone who can watch them and be with them, and they want to try to do that from the park. So there has been a change in that route. The police department, as well as Neil, the highway department, have been involved in the discussions. I know that you have as well, Rick. Those discussions are gonna continue this week. Hopefully that will go well. But since we did, at our previous meeting, make a motion to go with the standardized route, this is an exception, it's a one-time exception. I think that we should go forward and make a motion to cover this.
So for you, Ron was the original one, you're gonna use Route 2.
No, we're gonna use,
Don't even go race Route 1 and 2, no.
an alternate route, a
Alternate route,
one-time
there you go,
alternate route. And hopefully it will be a big
Let's not
success.
confuse the
80,
issue.
they are using 80% of Route 1. The other 20% of the 5K, we had to amend things.
So with that said, is there a motion to
I
accept
will
that?
make that motion.
Second,
Okay, Rick first, Ben second. Further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, that is carried. Thank you. I want to let people know that the village has received a check in the amount of $1,194. And this came through Phil Leonard, representing the Veterans Memorial Fund. And this was to purchase the historical signs for Wood Park. And you may recall from previous meetings, where examples of those signs have been given out. They're gonna look just like the New York State signs, the old ones that you used to see, and you'll see that several of them are still around the county, and you'll see those. We're gonna put it up over in the park, Neil's gonna get involved with that, but the Veterans Fund has provided the funding for that, and it's very nice. It's gonna give some recognition to what's here, to the DeCraft Memorial that's here as well as Wood Park. So I wanna thank Phil, and we also wanna thank the Veterans Memorial Group for doing this. Okay, quick update in zoning. Somebody mentioned that. As you know, we've been involved in updating the zoning laws and regulations. Well, the draft is coming out on that as well. It's gone to the advisory committee, and then it's going to be put online over the next couple of weeks. We're looking for final comments on that. As with anything else, the zoning laws and regulations will be a living, breathing document. They will change with the times and as things need to change. But we really had to go back and do this right from the beginning. They had not been updated since 1977. So you'll be seeing more about that. We'll get some hard copies out so that people can take a look at those as well. Excuse me. But that is a major effort. Hasn't been accomplished as yet, but it's a major effort going forward. And again, that speaks to the commitment that we have towards our economic growth, being business friendly, also recognizing the different residential needs and changes. And we'll be looking at the different kinds of things that you've raised as a result of that as well, Maggie, so that it all ties in. Okay? All right. Now, I want to get into, this is according to the agenda, this is where we, what?
Anyone else that wants to be heard?
Right, but I haven't had the opportunity to talk about that yet. I want to get that out there. I want to give an overview regarding our tentative budget. And again, this is the public hearing part of our new budget, our current budget that's in, that hopefully will be put in place. It's a lean budget. Our budget was filed with the village clerk on March 20th, so we met all of the legal requirements that the state put in place. It's an extremely lean budget. There is an increase. Last year's budget was in the neighborhood, total budget was in the neighborhood of $3.2 million in change. A good amount of change, but change. This year's budget is just a little bit over $3.3 million. Now, there have been some increases, and those increases include insurance, both liability insurance, property insurance, 5%, I believe. Health insurance, 7% projected. The property insurance may in fact come in even less than that. We've had some good news from the insurance folks as of late, so it may come in a little bit less, but you have to plan for it because you just don't know. We've included in this budget contracted services in terms of materials and supplies. We did a basic 3% increase because costs do go up. It also includes a 2% raise for all non-union staff and union staff because of their contracts, and we have two different contracts, are also getting a 2% raise. So that's included. So we've tried to take care of those kinds of things as well. There is no proposed increase for the board or any members of the board at all. We are also looking at, we've tried to add, well, we have added a contingency fund in our three of our fund balances. We have water, sewer, and our general fund. And in the past, we've, for a variety of reasons, and there's no criticism here, it is what it is. We just have not been able to do that and not been able to plan. So on a small scale, we've included $10,000 contingency in each fund. The idea being that if we can get through a year within each fund and not having to spend those dollars, you're starting off with $10,000. And we'll try and do the same thing next year and add another 10,000. So that when that pump or when that truck goes, over time you've built up and you've got a little bit of money towards the cost of any new equipment that may come up. Again, it's not a huge amount, but it is a beginning. So we have that. We have also, somebody mentioned, I've met with our justices as well as community services and building inspector, and we have looked at how we can make sure that we are being as efficient and as effective as possible in terms of not only regular fees, but court fees and fines and things like that. In this budget contains $7,500 for us to hire a prosecutor. Now, it sounds a little dramatic, all right? Rensselaer County District Attorney has written a letter which gives the village attorney the authority to act as a prosecutor in civil cases, not criminal cases, in civil cases where there may be fines or maybe things that need to be done. And it can either be the village attorney or his designate. Last fall, in anticipation of this, I interviewed some attorneys from out of the area who specialize in this kind of work. And they're out of the Glens Falls area, but they work with municipalities throughout the Capital District. And they do that. They provide that prosecutorial aspect, if you will. The courts indicated that that is something that is necessary. Now, $7,500 is not a lot of money, but the idea behind this is that by investing $7,500 over a period of time, that will generate revenue and bring in additional dollars. So getting to the point that you were making earlier, we want to take a look at those kinds of things. So that's included in this budget. We've also added software in the office. Building inspector referenced software that had been put in, that had been purchased in this current year, not the new year. But we have updated our software, trying to become much more efficient, trying to get away from doing everything the old-fashioned way, which is a good way to get things done, but it's also very time-consuming. So we need to move forward a little bit more. So we'll be looking at the software that we have in this current budget to help enhance what's going on as we go forward. We are also going to be looking at providing our records, our minutes to meetings, laws that may come up, zoning regulations, economic development plans, regulations, ordinances, whatever you want to call that, any kind of information. We've included in this budget a $1,200 fee that will work with a company out of Rochester that will upload all of this information, so it will be there and it will be available. Most all of the municipalities in Rensselaer County are doing this, so that if you wanted to go to Castleton, for example, and find out what it costs to get a building permit in Castleton, or how many building permits they had last year, or they did, or what it costs to do this or do that, you can do that because this information is now becoming available. We need to be part of that. We really do. Yes?
Why the sudden change with the DA's office? You know, if I'm correct, a few years ago, Rich McNally sent out the same letter. However, a plug for Rich McNally, he continued to prosecute all cases. Now, if I'm correct again, the DA's office now said that a few years ago, he basically played off of Rich McNally's letter. However, now he's sticking the taxpayers with defending all these own cases. Why
Well-
can't they continue to come as they have done in the past?
I've been told that they're not going to do that, that they have indicated that as far as traffic offenses and such go, and I don't know the detail, but that the district attorney has determined they're not gonna be doing that. This is around civil issues that the district attorney did not, to the best of my knowledge, did not on any type of a regular basis prosecute. So these were funds that were lost to us. I'm sorry, John, yes?
Yeah, no, they actually never did any of the civil work up here. It was either done, it was always done on an ad hoc basis. And the thing is that they don't really have the resources, I guess, to do this. And it's been, district attorneys going all the way back to Chuck Wilcox in the 70s. So I think that the change here is a more interesting change is the one that you brought up, which is that they're no longer going to be doing traffic tickets.
Traffic tickets. That's basically what I'm talking
You know, whether, and we'll certainly pursue that and try to have them continue to do that. But this was around the civil kinds of things. It just wasn't happening.
about. All right, thank you.
So we have that included, so we'll be looking at those kinds of things. I mentioned before that this is also a very lean budget. In the past, we have had approximately $17,000 to $18,000 in the budget for summer positions, and we've normally done 3 to 4 different summer positions. They've worked with the different departments. Again, to keep costs down, we've reduced that by about a third, so we're down to about $12,000. Not everybody worked for the entire summer, again, depending on what the situation was. So we've asked the departments to work together and to share resources where possible, but we've made some reductions there. We just need to tighten some things up in different areas as we're moving forward. So that's gonna be going on. This budget also enhances our police services as we go forward as well. So that's something that we think is very important to do. So we're gonna be moving forward with that. Now, what does all this boil down to? Well, what it boils down to is a property tax increase. In case nobody heard me, a property tax increase. It turns out we are looking at a 1.5% property tax increase. And that turns out to be approximately $1.25 per thousand. Now, in the past, funds have been taken, fairly substantial funds have been utilized, not taken, but just utilized from the various fund balances. And we're doing that this year as well, but to a much smaller extent, closer to $15,000, $16,000, $17,000 from fund balance as opposed to $100,000. Our overall fund balance for all three funds is still in very, very good shape. We're just under $1 million. But we need to make sure that we maintain that. It's almost like a line of credit. You need to have that so as you go forward in the future. And we don't want to cut it too closely. So it does become necessary to raise that 1.5%. Now, some of you may have recalled, particularly during the November elections, hearing about the tax freeze and the tax credit, and how the legislature passed and it went into law last year that any increases or that certain increases in property taxes could be refunded. and people could get that back in terms of a rebate. Well, as you are aware, and you hear this a lot, there's a 2% tax cap. Well, 2% isn't really 2%. We got any math majors in here? 2% really, with the formulas that are legal, I don't know if they're ethical, you want to talk about ethics, but they're legal, and 2% is really 1.68%. And under the law, that's as high as we can go unless we pass a law that says we can go higher. Under the tax freeze rebate process, if a municipality can show that they have savings of 1%, a minimum of 1% of their taxable properties over a year's period of time, and for the village, that is just under $1 million. It's right around 950,000, something like that, but just under $1 million. We would have to show that we have shown savings of approximately $9,500 this year that we're in now, next year, 16, and the following year, 17. The village has been spending its money very wisely, and we have been making considerable savings. Now, as part of the tax freeze plan, each municipality has to, number one, see if they meet the eligibility criteria, show that savings, and for us it's approximately $9,500 in savings annually. All right? We are currently working with Rensselaer County to see if we want to do a combined efficiency plan. Some of you may have received rebates earlier in the winter for school taxes, $18, $20, whatever the amount may be. Not a huge amount by any means, but some of you may have received that, all right? What we're talking about are funds that would come through in a rebate form next fall, in the coming fall. Because of the savings that we have generated, we have far exceeded the $9,500. We're anticipating a $6,500 savings alone in the 3 solar installations. We have started the process for the solar installation at the landfill. That's a much larger unit. We're anticipating just to the village, in its electric rates alone, once that's operational, and it's not yet, okay, but once that's operational, we're looking at about $45,000 a year in annual savings based on that. Last winter, we switched. We took out a fixed rate 2-year contract with another electrical supplier. And you all remember 2 years ago when National Grid's electric bills went sky high. I mean, they tripled and quadrupled, okay? We anticipated a savings of close to $25,000 a year by making this switch to a fixed rate. We've got a couple of other things like that as well. We have the water agreement, we have the police agreement, we have agreements between the town and the village. Those have also generated savings and will show savings being generated over the next 3 years. So why do I go on and on? The point is that the 1.5% property increase for eligible property owners, that's the key, eligible property owners, okay, and it's residential only, residential. An eligible property owner is someone with a combined income of less than $500,000 a year. Less than $500,000 a year, okay? With the exception of Kevin, that's probably, you know, everybody else probably comes under there. So we think we're in pretty good shape. You must also be star eligible. Now what this means is that what I'm recommending here is a 1.5% property increase. Because of the savings we're showing, come next fall, this coming fall, people who meet that eligibility criteria, residential property owners, making less than $500,000 a year and are star eligible will receive 1.68% back in a rebate. Not 1.5, but the 1.68, which, you know, could be another 38 cents. But I mean, it starts to get crazy. But people for the next 3 years, as long as we are in compliance, will get that back in a rebate. That's the plus. Will the legislature continue that beyond the next 3 years? Don't know. Don't know. I mean, that's a crapshoot, if ever there was one. We'll just have to see on that. But if we have to have a property increase, people will get that difference back. And that will come through that whole rebate process. It's very confusing. I don't pretend to understand it. I've had to color code it several times, talked to a number of people at NICOM and in the state and in other places. Again, I think we're showing that we're spending our money as efficiently as we possibly can. Prices do go up. We're going to try and maintain that, and we're trying to generate as much revenue as we possibly can where it's most efficient and effective. So that is the overview. Any questions or anyone to be heard regarding, anyone wish to be heard as far as the public hearing goes on the tentative budget? There being none, I would ask for a motion.
Motion?
Ben?
Second?
Rick? Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The budget has been approved and we will forward that on. Thank you very much. I will now ask that the public hearing be closed. Is there a motion?
Motion?
Ben?
Second?
Second, Rick?
Aye.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We will now move on to new business. And we really don't have too many things here, so hopefully we'll be able to move right along. Under new business, we have a motion to approve the agreement between the village and one John Patterson, village attorney, that would go from April 2015 to March 2016 in the amount of $518.50 per month.
Should,
Is there a motion?
Motion.
oh wait. Oh wait. Second?
Who was the first? I missed it. Bob? Oh, I'm sorry, Karen?
Karen.
Karen? Okay, Bob second? All right, further discussion?
Should he be in here while we vote on it or not?
Yeah.
Does it matter?
Does it really matter? I
Okay.
mean, we could certainly ask John to step outside.
No, that's fine.
John, can you do it for $518.49 a month? Can you do it for $518.49 a month? Just wondering how we came up with such an arbitrary number.
The 2%, and then you break it down into 12, divide by 12.
Remember, it's math major time.
Okay.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that is carried.
Gonna make you work for
Now
that.
you can follow up on what Maggie's talking about. If not, we're gonna start all over again.
Maggie wants an answer by the May meeting.
Just want to mention that through the Greenway Committee this spring, the village and the Greenway Committee, and then the Greenway Committee turned that over to the village, closed on property along the southern end of the Greenway Trail, property that had been formerly owned by John Skorupski, approximately 6 acres of land. And we are tentatively planning a ceremony for Friday, June 12th. I hope Friday's the June 12th, Maggie, you check for me, please, at 4 o'clock. And we want to just do a little bit of a welcoming and appreciation for that. So the Greenway Committee will be working more on that, but we hope to have that on a Friday, June 12th at 4 o'clock on the southern end of the trail. And as Rick said, the kiosk went in this week, so there'll be some signs up there by then, and it should look pretty good.
I'll try to be brief, but can I just say a little something about this? This property was secured through donations that were received through, the acts of the Hoosick River Greenway Committee, actually going out and looking for things. But I really wanna thank Mr. Skrupski, who's, actually pretty ill right now. But he really worked with us. He really wanted to make sure that we got this property, and he did everything in his own power to make sure, even in his current condition, that we got it for a reasonable price, and that he wasn't gonna really offer it to anybody else. It was ours as long as we could come up with what he was asking for it, which was really reasonable, if you ask me. I just wanted to make sure that the public was aware of that situation.
Yep, well said. Thank you. Okay, next item is vacation policy. So, we've had a situation here, and as you will recall earlier from the organizational meeting, when we look at our vacation for employees, basically it's a situation of use it or lose it. Now, we've had a situation come up here where we've got a request from an employee to buy back some vacation. Now, it's not quite as simple as it sounds, and what we have here is a very unique situation in which this particular employee was not able to take vacation because of workload issues, our workload issues, and also staff shortages. So I asked our finance committee to take a look at this. I also asked our labor relations attorney to draft up a policy if this is something that we wanted to go with and take a look at, and they did. And basically what we have is this would be for management personnel only. It would not be for any staff that are involved with unions or contracts. It would be for management only. It would only be the type of situation where I was planning to take my vacation next month, 12 feet of snow, I couldn't take my vacation, staff shortages, I was not able to take that vacation. And what I would like to try and do is buy back some of that vacation. Our labor relations attorney gave us information saying that we are not involved in any type of precedent-setting situation here. So this can be a very unique, individual situation. And you can say yes to one and you can say no to another, depending on the circumstances of that situation. I asked both Karen and Ben to take a look at it. They have done that. Ben or Karen, if you're comfortable, maybe just to give a brief overview. I believe we're talking about a maximum of 5 to 10 days. It would be no more than that. It can certainly be less than that. It's entirely up to the board in terms of whether or not we want to go with that. I think in fairness, there are some unique situations that do come up. This is not something, and I want to be very clear on this is not something where I can sit here and say, I'm going to plan on taking 2 weeks next Christmas and selling them back. It's not like that. And I'm using myself as an example if I were an employee and if I accrued that kind of thing. It's not like that. This is where you accrue that time, and again, because of village workload issues, it was not possible to do. So again, I want to be clear on that. So with that as an overview, Ben, Karen, did you want to add anything to it or not?
Well, I don't know if Ben and I agree on. Mine was actually, I'm one of those, of course, where I worked, it was use it or lose it. And unless you are on vacation, okay, and you are called into work, then I believe then yes, you're entitled to be paid for, stepping up or helping out or whatever. I agree though, there's times when things occur and whatever. So I said the most I would agree with is like 5 days. If it came down to circumstances like that. The thing is, depending on, we're not a rich village. We don't have money to spend to pay somebody double, if you think of it, to pay back out that money. So again, with 50 weeks out of a year, you're talking 20 days to use up. There should be days here and there to use, because we don't make them take like a week's vacation. I worked, you had to take 5 days consecutive then you could take days after that. But, you know, my thing is,